In this edition of Endzone Insights, we will be continuing our record prediction series in the NFC East and the AFC East, all on Endzone Insights. Welcome back into Endzone Insights, where you can get the best takes from the next generation of football fans. I am your host, Darius Fitzpatrick, and as promised, we will be continuing our record prediction series in the NFL. And today, we will be continuing in the East divisions. I started this series out with the West divisions, so if you haven't seen that, I would really recommend you check out that video and episode. And as usual, if you feel any differently about anything I say, please put it in the comments section. I love to get fan input on these types of things. With that being said, let's begin. And we will begin today's video in the AFC East with the New England Patriots, your AFC champions from last season. And I predict that they will go 10-7 this season. The New England Patriots are a very fascinating team this year. They had quite a good season last year where they went to the Super Bowl. However, they had one of the easiest roads to the Super Bowl that I think you will ever see happen. Now, with a much rougher and much tougher schedule this year, and everyone having them on their radar, it is hard to think that the Patriots will repeat the success that they had last year, especially considering the fact that they still have questions among the offensive line and other positions. Now, I still do think they will be a good team this year, especially with the addition of A.J. Brown to an otherwise lifeless receiving core. However, with such a difficult schedule this year and still many things that this roster has to improve on next year, such as offensive line performance and consistently getting to the QB in the regular season, I have this team going 10-7. Still a very good team and should still be able to make the playoffs with that record. However, they won't be looked at as a Super Bowl contender as they were last year. Next up, we have the New York Jets. And wow, I feel so bad for Jets fans. I always said that if any fan deserves to have their team make the playoffs, it is Jets fans. They have suffered through so much, and after 15 years, I unfortunately still do not see them making the postseason. And I have them finishing the year with one of the worst records ever, going 1-16. With that single win coming in their own division against another team that won't be competing for much either in 2026, the Miami Dolphins. The Jets have so much to work on this season. First off, they need to be able to generate any sort of turnovers, as they were one of the worst teams in generating turnovers, and as we all know, they didn't get a single interception last year. Second, they need to have competent QB play, and with Geno Smith at the helm, I doubt they will be able to get that. They also need to make sure that they have any receiving weapons outside of Garrett Wilson, and who, may I remind you, led the Jets in receiving yards when he got hurt in Week 6 last year and only had 395 receiving yards. And yet he still led the team in receiving yards. That's not good at all. Now, they did add some good pieces in the draft, such as David Bailey, Kenyon Sadiq, who I personally wanted for the Panthers, and Omar Cooper Jr. However, how quickly can these players develop on a roster where, outside of a few players, it seems they have very little talent? And finally, and this is the most important part, can Aaron Glenn rebound after last season? Aaron Glenn is on the hot seat and hasn't proven to me, or anyone else who is a football fan for that matter, that he is worthy of being a head coach in this league. And now, I hope he proves me wrong, but if what I think happens does in fact happen, then the Jets will fire him mid-season, and they will more than likely be trying to tank for a potential top-tier QB prospect in next year's draft. Another team that I don't have much hope for this season is the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, I predict them to go 2-15 this season. It's going to be a rough season for this team. And I think the team's focus should not be on winning a whole lot of games. I think this season should just be looking to see if Jeff Hafley, new head coach of the Dolphins, can put together respectable performances against opponents to the point where Dolphins fans think they have something there. They also need to see if Malik Willis is truly the guy for the Dolphins or if they need to be looking for a QB in next year's draft class. This may be hard to judge, though, because of how little support the Dolphins have around Malik Willis. Most of the weapons they had last year for Tua are no longer on the roster. Going from Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Darren Waller, most of the passing weapons they have are no longer on the team. Now, their starting receiver is going to be Malik Washington, who only had 317 receiving yards last season. If I was Malik Willis, that would most certainly not put a smile on my face. And also considering the fact that the offensive line is still one of the worst in the NFL. The only thing on the offensive side of the ball that can generate anything is Devon Achane. Now on the defensive side of the ball, the Dolphins have some young pieces which should be able to help out this team, especially considering the fact that Jeff Hafley is a defensive-minded coach, with Chris Johnson, their first-round cornerback, Chop Robinson, and, sorry if I mess up this last name, Zach Seisler. They should be able to work with something this year. However, the secondary still needs some work, and the offense will slow down this team to the point where they probably won't win a lot of games, which is how I have them going 2-15 over the season. And finally, ending off the AFC East, we have the Buffalo Bills, and I have them winning the AFC East once again, going 12-5. I know some people will be skeptical about how well this team is going to do this year with a new head coach at the helm. However, I don't believe that Josh Allen is going to lead this team to a season where they don't even make the playoffs. Josh Allen currently is in his prime and is one of the most consistent QBs in the entire NFL. And considering the fact that his former offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, is taking over head coaching duties, it should make the transition for the offense much easier, along with the fact they will have an improved receiving core, DJ Moore, to tag along with an already amazing running game with James Cook. To make this offense, so this offense should at least be on the level that it was on last year with Sean McDermott. Now on the defensive side of the ball, there will be drastic changes from Sean McDermott's style. The main question I have is how will the run defense look this year? Because let me remind you that the run defense was one of the worst in the entire NFL last year and really did hurt them in some critical games. Can new Bills DC Jim Leonhard be able to put together a good run defense? That is the big question. Because they didn't change out a lot of the players they had on the defensive line. They're just changing their scheme as they're changing to new 3-4 base scheme. I just need this run defense to be average because with Josh Allen at the helm with this offense and a past defense that was ranked one of the best in the NFL, they won't need to do much in order to pull out games with a win. Well, we're going to take a quick break right here, and when we come back, we will discuss record predictions for the NFC East. Welcome back into Endzone Insights, and we will be continuing this episode with the New York Giants, who I have going 7-10 this season. I know a lot of people are really high on this team this year, and I understand why. However, I still have a few questions about this team heading into the season. First off, I'm concerned about the maturity of the team and whether or not the players will be able to contain themselves off the field. The way some of the players are acting kind of reminds me of how players at my high school act. The only difference is that the football players at my high school are teenagers, and it makes sense for that age. The Giants players are fully grown adults and should not be acting that way they are. Secondly, a lot of players they have on the roster seem to have injury concerns, which really does scare me. What I've heard from a lot of people is when this team is fully healthy, they will be dangerous, and I can see that happening. But I worry about how long these players can stay on the same field at the same time for. This list of players include Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboo, and Malik Neighbors, who are all vital to the Giants' success this season. I don't know if this team can keep all of those players healthy the entire year when all of them seem to have extensive injury histories. I also worry about how much this team's secondary can improve from last year. As we all know, the secondary last year was one of the biggest reasons that this team lost so many close games. Now, I don't think they will be as bad this season. However, there was no move this offseason that they made outside of Arvell Reese that really solidified this secondary. Now, I do have them going 7-10 this season because I believe that John Harbaugh is going to be able to put together at least a decent team around him. Even with all the questions the Giants have, I think that this team should still be able to answer some of the questions that I have, and I think that he will be able to fix them. But as long as some of these, but still, I think this year should just be trying to figure things out first as a first year head coach. Well, not a first year head coach, but this is the first time John Harbaugh is taking over the team for the New York Giants. So I don't think they're going to be a playoff contender this year. However, next year I could fully, if they go 7-10, I could fully see them being a playoff contender. Next up, we have one of the most hated teams in the entire NFL. We have the Dallas Cowboys. Now, and I know that some people think that this is the same Cowboys team every single season. They get hyped up before the season even begins and don't do anything to validate that hype. Well, guess what? I am buying my stock on the Dallas Cowboys this season. I am picking the Dallas Cowboys to go 10-7 this season. A record like this should definitely be good enough to make the postseason. Now, you may be wondering why I have chosen the Cowboys having such a good record. Well, that is because, one, I trust the offense. We have seen how good this Dallas Cowboys offense was last season. It was ranked second in the entire National Football League by Fox Sports. The problem last year was how bad that defense was. The defense truly was awful and could not stop a nosebleed to save their lives. Now, the Cowboys did bring in a lot of high talent to improve this defense. This is headlined by Caleb Downs, who, in my personal opinion, was my favorite player in this draft. Rashawn Gary, Quinnen Williams, Jalen Thompson, and Malachi Lawrence. Sorry, I kind of tripped up on his name right there. But anyway, there will be some growing pains for this defense this season. And considering the fact that they are having a first-time defensive coordinator run the defense, and a lot of these pieces that they've brought in need to be developed, it may take some time for them to get used to things. However, with the way the offense is run, they don't need this defense to be a top-tier unit. They just need it to be middle of the pack this season. If that happens and the offense stays healthy, then I don't see a world where they don't make the playoffs this year. If the Cowboys ended with that sort of record, they would be second in the division because in first place, I have the Eagles going 11-6 and winning the division. Now, I'm going to be frank right now. I have not been as high on the Eagles as many other people are if you've listened to me in the past, specifically about Jalen Hurts. But I know they are one of the most consistent teams in the NFL in terms of winning. As a Panthers fan, I would absolutely love to win as many games as the Eagles do each and every year. That being said, they still have their flaws. In the past 2 seasons, their offensive passing attack has been a weakness for the team. They seem to rely heavily on Saquon Barkley, and when he is not able to do anything on the offense is a shell of itself. And I always want to see more out of Jalen Hurts in his games. Not in terms of winning, because he is one of the best in terms of that, but just in his overall performance. However, I think that this season, it sounds like the new OC Sean Mannion is going to improve the Eagles' passing attack through the middle of the field, which has been the passing game's biggest flaw the last 2 seasons. I also believe that the addition of Mekhi Lemon is the key to unlocking that part of the field for the Eagles. It will take some time for Sean Mannion and the Eagles offense to get going and to get a groove together. And with the gauntlet of a first 5 games, I have them going 2-3 right away. That being said, it should be expected for a first-time OC and Sean Mannion in order to establish his offense that he needs time. And Eagles fans, you just need to give him time to figure out the offense for the first few weeks, as opposed to just berating him and attacking him right away. Once they get past that 5-week stretch, they should be able to go on a run and win the NFC East. If you're wondering why I have the Eagles losing the final game against the Giants, though, that is because at that point in the season, I anticipate them trying to rest their starters for the playoffs. And finally, to end off this video, we have the Washington Commanders, who, after a disappointing 2025 season, I don't see much of a change in 2026 as I see them going 5 and 12. I kept trying to convince myself that things would be better this season, that the Commanders would be a much improved team this season. However, I could not shake off the feeling that this team is going to be a disappointment like last season. First off, when I look on the offensive side of the ball for the Commanders, there isn't much star power outside of Terry McLaurin, who is getting up there in age. I think the main thing that helped this Washington Commanders offense in 2024 was the emergence of Jaden Daniels. And with the injuries, all of the injuries that he sustained last year, I'm not willing to put my faith in the fact that he will be healthy this season. We truly just don't know if he can stay healthy. And when he was healthy in 2025, he did not play well. He did not play that well. So I don't think this offense will be able to be that explosive. And on the defensive side of the ball, they don't have anywhere to go but up. They were ranked last in total defense last year, and they did make some great additions on the defensive side of the ball, but like signing pass rusher Adofe Owe and drafting Sonny Styles, who I really love that draft pick. However, it just depends on how good this defense will improve, because do I think they will go from the worst defense in the NFL to one of the best? No, I don't think so. In totality, I think that even if one side of the ball is a strong unit, I feel that the other side of the ball is going to completely weigh down the team's overall production. Either one side of the ball is going to be a work in progress next year, or both sides of the ball will struggle. I don't see a world where both the offense and the defense are a force to be reckoned with this year. That is why I have them finishing the 2026 season 5 and 12. Well, that is going to wrap up this edition of Endzone Insights. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please send it to someone you know. If you feel any differently about anything I said, please put it in the comments section. When we return, we will be discussing more NFL record predictions in the AFC South and NFC South. Until then, be safe, be happy, and live your best life.